Good morning and welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. It is Tuesday, November 21st, 2020, 22nd, actually, 2022. I knew I was getting my days confused. Time is flying by. But this morning, Kelly Rowland had to check the crowd at the American Music Awards who thought it was okay to boo Chris Brown. But was she right in telling them to just chill out? We'll discuss that. Also, LeBron James and his company have gotten together with the estate of Nipsey Hustle in a new docu-series about the late hip-hop star's life is expected to debut next March. We will have the details. And it turns out Chrisley didn't know best. We'll talk about that too. Todd Chrisley and his wife going to federal prison. But first, Tiffany Cross reportedly has lawyered up and is preparing to fight back against MSNBC over their highly suspicious termination of the successful news host. We are going to discuss that with Rashonda Tate Billingsley this morning. Good morning, Rashonda. Rashonda muted herself. We would rather hear you than have you on mute, Rashonda.
It's early. I'm having my coffee. Good morning.
Oh, my goodness. What kind of coffee we got this morning? Any hazelnut or something like that?
No, it's the one from New Orleans. I don't even know the name. Cafe de Monde.
Oh, here we go. Down from the bayou.
Yeah.
Listen, Rashonda, earlier this month, everybody was in an uproar, rightfully so, on how MSNBC just all of a sudden, just before the midterm elections, fired Tiffany Cross. Or they said they didn't renew her contract, to put it in a nice way. And now, though, Tiffany says enough is enough. She's heard MSNBC, drag her a bit, trying to mess up her reputation. And so she got a lawyer. She hired the same lawyer. I think it was Gabrielle Union who hired Brian Friedman, who when she had the America's Got Talent dispute. And now he is working with Tiffany to say, hey, wait a minute, this was not right. What MSNBC has done and is doing, because they're sullying her name, Rashonda.
Right. And she had a post from Maya Angelou the other day. She just simply, you may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. And, I don't blame her because her name is on the line. And they're releasing the information about, I can't say they're releasing, but we know it had to come from somewhere.
Right.
That she was spending money and living high off the hog like she was a celebrity. The abrupt firing, they saw that coming. When they don't renew your contract, they're not going to renew your contract. You leave, they give you time. Right. You don't come to work and all of a sudden you don't have a job right before midterm.
Yeah, and you're right. They let you know. They let you know when they are terminating not terminating, but the contract is up. They're not going to renew it, or they're going to extend it. Look, full disclosure, I worked for MSNBC back 2002 to 2006, and every year it was a year-to-year contract. And the last contract was actually 18 months, and they let me know around the 12th month of that 18 month that unfortunately we're not going to be able to renew it after it's done. So they give you a heads up. Not that I was like Tiffany Cross, but that was the deal. That's always been their deal with anybody. And what they did here, it was especially telling after her taking down, rightfully so, Tucker Carlson and others who was just spouting disinformation, misinformation, just setting the record straight. And now too, what's interesting, I'm seeing in some reports they're now putting Rashida Jones, they're blaming her. Now Rashida is the president over there, and she's a Black woman. So it seems like they're trying to say it's all her, right? And it's interesting that they would blame another Black woman, because this is where this is like setting up legal strategy, right?
Right. They're trying to say, hey, don't blame us, blame the Black woman. So you can't get mad. They figure if they put Rashida as the face of what happened to Tiffany, then we can't get mad because it's one Black woman doing it to another. But it really is just foul across the board, because I thought that's what they wanted Tiffany to do. They wanted Tiffany to come. When they hired her, they knew she was coming to bring the smoke. I thought, that's what you want. And for some reason, they had issues with Tiffany. Now, the thing that I found fascinating is they really give everybody else all these chances. As she said, you got
Yes.
Mika and Joe. They mess up and they get a show in expanded hours. But Tiffany, she gets gone with no advance notice. She's just out of there.
Yeah, and one of the things that folks continue to point out, some of the things they continue to point out, how when she got to the network, she was unfiltered. She condemned white supremacy, political violence, and racism. And so, we know that I mentioned Tucker Carlson. We know that Fox News targeted her, and that it was to be expected based on what we know of Fox News, right?
Right. And as just as Fox comes for her, she's been the target of several of their opinion related shows. She was just doing what she does on her end. But for some reason, that just wasn't what they were looking for. But I'm glad to see that she's fighting back. I'm glad to see that she's just not going to go quietly into the night.
Yeah, she said that after more than 20 years in journalism, I will not stop. The attacks on me from other outlets and former hosts will never control my narrative. And you know, you can only applaud her. She's not backing down, and they were probably, I'm sure they were hoping that she would just go away.
Right, that's what they were hoping, that they can put out this bad information about her overspending and trying to be a celebrity, and that she would just fade into the night. But they should have known. I mean, she going after Tucker. She just was never. I don't know her, and I know she's not the type that is just going to go away quietly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just surprised. Maybe it's by design. Maybe she has been offered something else, and she's just decided to wait it out a little bit. But I'm just surprised that if that's not the case, that somebody hasn't snapped her up. I mean, it's a true talent, and you don't have many of that, much of that anymore. That's a true talent. So we talked about it on this program before. Byron Allen, Comedy Central, whomever. There's openings, and as we said before, you create an opening for Tiffany Cross.
Correct. And then she'll look up. They'll look up and see her excelling somewhere else, and they'll realize the loss. But for some reason, they saw her right now as more of a liability.
Yeah, without question. Well, Kelly Rowland, she doesn't tend to be very divisive or controversial at all. And we were in Disney earlier this year, Greer and I, and we got a chance to talk to her a bit. But when she found herself in the awkward position of having to accept the favorite male R&B artist trophy on behalf of the absent Chris Brown at Sunday's American Music Awards ceremony, she wound up confronting the protesting audience. Of course, Chris was originally scheduled to perform a tribute to Michael Jackson, but that was called off and he skipped the show altogether. And when the audience members began booing after she announced that Chris had won favorite male R&B artist, Kelly was not having it. I mean, she just said, "Excuse me, chill out." I mean, she gave them a stern, not necessarily a lecture, but hey, this man deserves it. Now, we know why folks are still up in arms over Chris, and listen, what he did is inexcusable. What he did, especially, he can't be doing that to Rihanna. I ain't, me and him, I still haven't, taken him outside for that myself. But the thing is, she's moved on happily ever after.
Exactly.
He's got his life. The man is one of the most talented figures in the industry, period. If not the most, some will say he's the most talented.
Mm-hmm.
There was a story recently that, and I heard this years ago too about him, but there's a story recently about how he could have been, how he was supposed to be the next Michael Jackson.
Right.
But what was Kelly right, Rashonda, in standing up and saying, "Look, give the man some respect. He deserves his award"?
Absolutely. We all would hate to be defined as our worst mistake. And I'm with you. What Chris did at the time was inexcusable. You're talking about a young man who made a horrible mistake. It'd be different if this was a pattern. But to cancel him and crucify him continuously until the end of time, I think that's what Kelly is saying, especially
Mhm.
as someone who knows him. And she's saying he's a good man. And he lost the whole Michael Jackson tribute. So
Mhm.
we were denied to see such a fantastic tribute. And I just think punishing this young man for the rest of his life over something he did as a young man is not something we should be doing. And I think that's what Kelly felt. And she stood and came to the defense of her friend.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse for any type of domestic violence, or any type of, whether a man is beating on a woman or a woman is beating on a man. There's no excuse for that.
Right.
He was young, and that's not an excuse either. He should have known better. And it was really horrific. It was really horrific. Let's just leave it at that. It's so long ago, and there has, as you pointed out, here's the thing that you pointed out that I think is important. We have not heard him do that again. In fact, they reconciled a couple of times.
Yeah.
Rihanna, the victim, forgave the man.
Right.
Um, and we have not even we've heard him be falsely accused of some things, and we can say falsely accused of some things because there was video evidence that came out that shut down a couple of people who
Yes.
pretty much appeared to set him up
Yeah.
based on that situation with Rihanna, based on thinking, okay, he has a reputation, everybody's going to believe that he did this.
Hmm.
But there's been no repeat of that. So whatever help that he sought out at the time, because if you remember, he was supposed to go into some sort of anger management or whatever it was. It appears to have worked because we have not heard. And believe me, if he had done this again to somebody, that what he did to Rihanna, we would have heard about it and then some.
Right. I think one of the best examples of this, and I don't know if it's because it was Rihanna who was the victim, but if you take a look at Mark Wahlberg, who I just love as an actor, Mark Wahlberg blinded a man in a fight
Mm-hmm.
while calling him a racial epithet years ago. And it's like folks just let that go. And Mark is enjoying a well deserved career now, but he's not being penalized for something he did in his youth. But for
Right.
some reason, when it comes to Chris Brown, um, um, Black folks want to continue to penalize him for something that he did in his youth.
Yeah, and you know what? Let's face it. Let's be honest. He's paid and will forever pay the biggest price of all. Watching Rihanna shine the way she
Yes.
shines. I mean, come on. You know,
Success is the sweetest
it's
revenge.
the sweetest revenge, and there's no one more successful than Rihanna, right? I
Right.
mean, a billionaire. She's fashion lines, her lingerie lines, her Savage Fenty and all that, and her fans want her to drop new music. She just did, by the way, and she's gonna do the Super Bowl, which is outstanding. Her thing is, I got so many other things to do than put out new music.
Right.
She is, as they say, working it.
Yep, she is. She is. And if she has moved on, America should move on.
Yeah, absolutely. People should just get over it. And so big kudos to Kelly Rowland again for standing up and saying, "Hey, this is just not right." And here's the other thing. What I've never gotten, but I guess when you say fans, it's a shortened word for fanatic. The thing about it is you don't know him. You don't know her.
Right.
You know their music, their craft. You don't know them. So what's the hate for? There's enough hate going around in politics. You don't need it in entertainment.
Right.
It's like, come on. Let's get over ourselves. The guy he's doing his job. And what's his job? You pay him to entertain you. And based on no matter who you talk to, no better entertainers than Chris Brown.
Absolutely.
So there you have it. Hey, so and staying with the music theme, and March 31st will mark 4 years since the unfortunate murder of Nipsey Hustle. The Los Angeles native's legacy will finally be honored on film with a new untitled docu-series. LeBron James and Maverick Carter's media production company Spring Hill partnered with Nipsey's Marathon Films to tell the story of his life. The docu-series will chronicle Nipsey's transition from his early days growing up in Crenshaw to becoming a world-renowned artist, entrepreneur, and activist. And that's the other part, Rashonda, folks tend to overlook when it comes to this young man. He was certainly an entrepreneur, yes. He was certainly an artist, yes. But he was also an activist who cared, who appeared to have, I don't know him, didn't know him, I should say, but he really appeared, by all accounts, to really care for his community.
That's right. You know, when we hear about Nipsey Hussle before we knew who he was, because let's face it, mainstream media really didn't know who he was. When you saw the young man or when you heard about him, you immediately would equate his rap music, his upbringing to something negative. And I just think that's how a lot of people do in terms of judging folks without knowing the whole story. And Nipsey Hussle, regardless of his background, was committed to his community always, and he was continuously working in his community. And I'm glad that his legacy, if you will, is now that story is now being told.
Oh yeah, and he has a 6-year-old daughter. She's 6 years old now, and she will also be in the film about her father. And I thought that's a nice touch right there, and it'd be awesome to hear what she has to say at that young age. 6 years old, will never know her father. Will not personally. I mean, she'll know him through film and documentaries and things like that, but just imagine that means she was about 2 years old when he lost his life. So she will never know what it's like to have her father in her life.
Correct. And this is part of one of the things that LeBron James and his Maverick Films is hoping to do is to cement stories like these, not only for her but for his community, and for young people for years to come, to be able to come back and see this story, which is really, no matter how the mainstream looks at it, an inspirational story.
Yeah, it is. And there are some clips of Nipsey in his community, lots of clips of him in his community, but also him in the boardroom, and him in strategy meetings when it comes to, as we said, being an activist.
Mm-hmm.
So this guy really, it wasn't just the music. It was much more, as they used to say, behind the music, right?
Right.
The clothing, and that, I understand now, the clothing store and the clothing line really was for the community in the sense that the prices were affordable. Not many do that today.
Right.
I mean, we see these Yeezys. I mean, not many can afford Yeezys, right? And it goes down the line. Michael Jordan, of course, Jordans.
Give me the Shacks, the $59 shoes.
There you go. Or the Starburys. Do you remember Stephon Marbury used to have the Starburys? They was like $20 or less.
Mm-hmm.
So it was truly about community, and it's a statement, because once I'm one who, I hear people say all the time, once you made it, you gotta get out of the hood, whatever, and I'm with that. Doesn't mean that, but that doesn't mean that you forget them. And this guy, he didn't leave, and he didn't forget either. Mm-hmm. I mean, his business was about the community, and that's what makes him unique in a lot of ways. So we'll be looking for this documentary. LeBron James, kudos to him and his company, and Maverick. They know what they're doing, and like you said, the wonderful thing is that they're documenting these things, and I'm pretty sure Nipsey Hussle won't be the only one.
That's right, and I really am looking forward to what LeBron and his company is bringing to the forefront. I understand they have some good things in the works.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and what a loss. And Rashonda, just real quick, um, it's this how did I put it? I mean, watching how these artists, take off a couple of weeks ago, what's happening with these artists in their lives? Um, they're such targets now.
Right. I always say there are people who their sole job is to go and say, okay, let me see what I can get from this person. Let me see how I can set this celebrity up. And it really is a sad state of affairs of how careful you have to be once you reach that level. And so I really do like what they're doing in terms of shining a light on those type of things. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it is sad, and hopefully, there will be some sort of coming together, a real coming together. We had in the mid '80s self destruction, and everyone seemed to have come together and rallied around that cause at the time to stop the violence, and perhaps now we'll see more of that, particularly as it seems like these deaths are happening just on a daily basis almost. I mean, every time you wake up and you go, look at your Twitter feed or where it's RIP. It's
Yeah.
those three letters are just, you got to be tired of seeing those three letters.
Right. And it's almost like the light is brighter because of social media, so we are able to see the extent of the violence that's taking place.
Mm-hmm.
I it really saddens me when you look at the people like Migos, and you look at what's going on with Shanquilla Robinson, and you look at the
Oh
first thing
God.
they're doing is filming and putting it all on social media. So that's a whole other story.
Yeah, that Shanquilla, like you said, filming. I still get heated when I think about the individual that's just filming as this
Yeah.
happens, and then you're doing absolutely nothing except filming so you can put it on social media.
Yep.
And now she's dead.
Yep.
Do you have any emotions about that? I'd like to. It'd be great to sit with that person. Do you have any emotions about this?
You
I mean,
know,
it's
any
horrible.
our thoughts to their family. I mean, can you imagine as a mother, as a father, having to continuously watch that video? But we're in this age where there's just a need to be first. I want to get this up so people can share and I can get likes with no regard for the family.
None whatsoever. And it's such a great point too, because generally, traditional news, if they were to happen to be in a spot where they're able to capture something like that, they don't tell you who the person is, especially if the person is dead, and they blur the faces of the person out of respect for the family. And by the way, her funeral was yesterday, and that it is the saddest of sad things to go away thinking you're going on a fun vacation with
Yeah.
your quote unquote friends,
Yeah.
and you don't come home. That's the most awful thing. So, Rashonda, we're gonna end this morning with whether or not is there any more debate as to whether Chris Lee knows best.
I wouldn't take advice from Chris Lee. So I don't think he knows best. I don't think he knows much at all to be making the decisions that he made that have now gotten him 12 years in prison, not jail, prison.
and 7 years for the wife.
7 years for the wife, then 3 years supervised release for both of them after that. So no, he doesn't know best.
So yeah, and they have children and including a young child too. But how in the world does the husband and the wife? How? I mean, is there one? Do you ever think like this could happen? We could be in prison, and
That's that privilege. I mean, I'm sorry, and I know some of us do it too. Not us, because I can't go to jail, but some black folks do it too. Uh, I don't understand. How do you think that the R and the S is not going to get their money. That there is any way that
One of them gonna get their money, either the I, the R, or the S, right?
death and taxes, those they coming regardless. And just to be, and especially you're gonna commit these crimes, and you're a public reality TV figure.
Mm.
Yeah, so no, there's nothing smart about that move at all. And that is very sad for their family, because they did have a tight knit, funny family, but you don't have to laugh with them in the waiting room at the prison.
I can tell you right now, my wife would be like, "Look, I don't want you to go to jail, but if you making this choice, I ain't going with you."
Right? I'll put some money on your books.
I'll put some money on the book.
They leave us anything, because the Chrisleys got to pay some money back. So
yes, and my question becomes too: did anybody, come on, honestly, did anybody ever hear of Todd Chrisley before the reality show? Anybody ever hear of his wife before the reality show? Where did they come from?
they made for good TV, and that's all that matters. But
Why?
yeah, I know.
How did they even know? How did the network even know? What did they do? They pitched them and said, "Look."
knowing the Chrisleys, and I've only seen a couple of their shows. They probably pitched themselves and said, "Here's a reality show you should look at."
Do you remember the Wayans brothers, and when they had their show, Marlon and Sean had their show, and they did a spoof in the beginning, we're brothers and we're colored.
Yes.
Did the Chrisleys say we're bright and we're white? I mean, and so whoever picked them up, whatever network, said, yes, that's what we want, bright and white and always right.
And extra, because when I thought, I was like, okay, so he has a wife, okay, because he was just over the top, but that's what they wanted. That's what made for good TV. And that by itself would have been enough for me to say, okay, let me walk the straight and narrow and not try to defraud the U.S. government. But
I mean, they were taking people for 30 million, 20, and then like you said, the I, the R, and the S, when they started messing with those folks, Uncle Sam said, look, they don't call me uncle for a reason.
Right.
For any reason. I mean, come on. And yes. I know that there was an argument from the attorneys to get them to stagger their prison time, if they were sentenced, and they were sentenced, to let the wife stay out of prison until his term is up. The judge, I'm sure, you need to hold in abeyance for 12 years, her 7 years. Not happening. Happening.
But here's the thing. They have new episodes that will debut next year. So they're going to be behind bars watching their reality show.
Oh, my goodness. Are you kidding me? So they're going to air these episodes.
Yep, they were filmed trial. Film, and that shows you the network is all about the business. They're like, oh, this will give us even more ratings. So they will debut sometime next year. And their attorney, their accountant, also went to jail.
Well, naturally.
but what can I don't understand. I'm not even getting the millions, and I'm going to defraud the IRS also? No.
Look, the accountant went to jail. If he was my accountant, he'd be, I'd have been like, listen, state's evidence. Can we make a deal? Please, let's make a deal. I'm throwing him under the bus and backing over him.
Yeah.
How did it count? Come on. I guess, again, all we have to look at is one word, and that's privilege.
Privilege. That sums it up.
Goodness grief. Well, I tell you what, it's always such a privilege to have Rashonda Tate Billingsley with us all the way from Houston early in the morning. She had a coffee and
with a cafe du monde, so I'm good.
Yeah, she got coffee. Look, Rashonda's so cool. She called Louisiana and said, "Send me some coffee this morning."
They know I need it. It's not that I need it. Everybody around me needs me to have it. So.
Now you're talking a different story. It's like, listen, don't let that Rashonda come out.
Right.
Thanks so much, Rashonda, and thank you all for watching Let It Be Known. We'll see you tomorrow.